Oklahoma's got a brand new offensive coordinator, and much like in years past, you can expect explosive plays from the passing attack. What do we make of Ben Arbuckle leaving Pullman, coming to Norman? Will he be the right fit for the Sooners in year two, and can he actually be a reason why we're talking about Oklahoma as a college football playoff contender in 2025? What's going on, SEC Unfiltered family? It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, smash that ring notification, and of course, hit the subscribe button, because just because the season's over doesn't mean we're not breaking down everything going on in the transfer portal, coaching news, college football playoff. This is your number one source for all things SEC, so smash that subscribe button. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. If you want to follow me, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson. And check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. This video is brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Use the promo code SECU for 20% off your first purchase. Joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts. The holiday season is right around the corner. Get somebody in your life a RHOBACK, because if you know that they'll appreciate it, RHOBACK.com, use the promo code SECU. So let's just get this out of the way. It was a down year for Oklahoma's offense. Really down year. In fact, it was so down that we didn't even see Seth Littrell make it to the season's end. They had to fire him mid-year because they realized this is not going to work. It's not going to be sustainable, and we have to make some bit of change if we want any success. So Joe John Finley, Kevin Johns take on over. They were in the running. They didn't do enough. They're going to a bowl game, so you can at least appreciate that if you're in Sooner country. The winning streak is over, but the bowl streak is still alive. This is a coveted job. This is Oklahoma football. It's the Crimson and Cream. It's Norman on a Saturday night. If you're running this offense the way that we've seen in years past with guys such as Lincoln Riley, guys such as Josh Heupel, you have to be explosive. And the guys that interviewed for this position were very much considered rising stars in the business. Cade Bell, the offense coordinator from Pitt, was considered. Brennan Marion, the UNLV go-go offense, was considered. Jake Spavital had some lows when he was the offensive coordinator at times in the past, had some really lows when he was at Texas State, recently just resurged as Baylor's offensive coordinator. Our friend Buster Faulkner, the guy that just took Georgia down to 8 overtimes, was in the running. And Tulane's Joe Craddock was also involved. But ultimately, Brent Venables went with a youthful approach, went with somebody that he believes can invoke a new spark, very similar to what Bob Stoops did years ago when he brought in I-8 Lincoln Riley. I know you hate the name. I know that you understand that he left you in the middle of the night for USC thinking that California was better. We all know it's not. But still, you got to remember that this offense was humming at the right time when Riley came on in. And this is a guy that comes from that small town background. Played at West Texas A&M, comes from Canadian Texas, basically right outside of Wichita Falls. He embraces what is the culture of Norman. He is somebody that you can hitch your wagon to and believe he is going to do everything in his power to bring in the right personnel. 29 years old. Guy's only been coaching for 7 years. Started off as an assistant unpaid dude at Houston Baptist University. Just trying to get into the industry, knocking on doors. Can I help you out? And eventually, he got under the wing of Zach Kittley. Kittley recently was just hired by Florida Atlantic to be the Owls' next head coach in place of Tom Herman. But this was a guy that has developed quarterbacks. And because he also has played the quarterback position, he kind of knows what he's talking about. Went from HBU over to Western Kentucky. Eventually got the job to replace Eric Morris at Washington State. Explosivity has been the title of the offense. You got to realize that he's also been a great developer with quarterbacks. Bailey Zappi, one of the all-time leaders in passing yards for a single season. Worked with him. Austin Reed, continued that success with the Hilltoppers underneath Tyson Helton when he was there. Worked with Cam Ward before he went out to Coral Gables, Florida this past year to become the Hurricanes hurler. And then John Mateer, one of the best passers in college football this season, all have been developed by Arbuckle. One thing you got to know, you're going to get explosive plays. When they were working together, Zach Kittley and him out at Western Kentucky, they had the number 7th score total offense. They averaged over 398 yards. I think it was like more so like 422 yards, 15th in scoring. Reed led college football that year in passing. So you can expect this to be an offense that is going to feed the football. On top of that, you also look last year or this past year, John Mateer led the 12th scoring offense, 24th in passing, and they were 22nd in total offense. They struggled down the stretch, had a couple of bad losses here and there, but ultimately there was a reason why we were talking about Washington State as maybe that dark horse to get the 12 seed if things went haywire in the SEC, the Big 12, and everything else. It's a complete revamped style from this offense that you saw last year underneath Seth Littrell. And we're going to have to throw in injuries, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But you have to realize, last season, Oklahoma ranked 122nd in passing offense, 124th in total offense, 94th in scoring. That is not sustainable in the SEC. So you are getting a guy that's coming on in to bring new life and energy to a team that needs to figure out how it can match its defense. This defense last year was one of the best in college football. And unfortunately, you're going to watch a lot of these players go off and have successful careers in the NFL on Sundays, and they're not going to be able to see the fruits of the labor that will be Oklahoma football in the SEC. It's not an air raid style that many people are going to establish in the past. So when you think of Hal Mummy, when you think of Mike Leach, when you think of these guys that are all about spreading the football deep downfield, that's not what you can expect. This past year especially, they were a very balanced attack out in Pullman, Washington. About 55% run, 45% pass. They are not afraid to tuck and run. In fact, if you look at Zach Kitley's offense out in Lubbock, that is what I think you can expect out in Norman. You got to be able to have a great running back. Taj Brooks, the all-time leading rusher for Texas Tech football, is what you can expect out in Norman. Somebody that can be the tote of the rock. Somebody that is not afraid to pile drive forward and get those hard yards, to get defenses to corral the box. So that way, when you can attack vertically, you will. And more importantly, when you think about a spread offense, you think about like maybe Brennan Marion's go-go attack, it's something that you're going to see 4 or 5 wide receivers with. This is one that you will see 3 wide receivers. Every once in a while, 4 wide receivers and a running back in the backfield. You also will see tight end usage. In fact, if you go and look at Texas Tech's offense this past year and how they utilize the tight end position, that is going to be critical. They are going to get that position involved. So if you feel like that Roberts is not your long-term guy, if you feel like Bauer Sharp is not your long-term guy, you're going to have to go ahead into the transfer portal and bring in the right personnel. That's just 100% the only way it can work. Now, there are some things you have to realize. Number one, Arbuckle fits the style that has worked in years past. We know about Oklahoma's offense for years in the Big 12. They were breaking and really benefiting on having an explosive offense with top-tier wide receivers from CeeDee Lamb to D.D. Westbrook to Hollywood Brown and great quarterbacks that were not afraid to tuck and run. You had Jalen Hurts, you had Baker Mayfield, you had Kyler Murray. This offense out in Pullman utilized the quarterback rushing attack. In fact, you had a decent run game, but about, I would say, 65% of the runs were actually John Mateer going through his progression. First read, second read. Oh, now we got to go ahead and tuck and run. We're going to go pick up yards. So you got to have a mobile quarterback. That's key number one. Do you believe that that mobile quarterback is going to be Jackson Arnold? There's a conversation that has to go on internally with the organization. What's the plan at QB? Because if John Mateer is more than likely going to enter the transfer portal. Now, there's been rumors and speculation that when you get the main guy in the sidecar, that's where you're going to get the QB. He is following him. He's got a couple years of eligibility left. It would make sense. The relationship has already been formed. You already know the ins and outs of how they want to run the offense. But Jackson Arnold, if you do believe, former 5-star from the state of Texas, if he can be that dude, Arbuckle has to make that call. The biggest criteria that I'm looking for when it comes to this style of offense moving forward is that you are putting a full emphasis and trust in Arbuckle to be the guy. There's no micromanaging. If you are Brent Venables, do the smart thing and leave the offense to the offensive personnels. Worry about the defense. Continue to worry about being that CEO mentality approach, getting the right personnels in place. And then when it comes to game day, trust that your offense is going to get the job done and your defense is going to get the ball back to your offensive playmakers, whoever that is. Number two, if you feel like that you have the right quarterback in Jackson Arnold, you got to be able to build around him. That starts with health. You got to be able to have a stable offensive line. You have to be able to have multiple wide receivers that you think can be a difference maker. And it stinks because this past year, we really didn't see much of that. Deion Burks was a dude that I was very high on coming in from Purdue. I thought Nick Anderson and Jackson Arnold were going to have a harmonious relationship because of the success we saw in the Alamo Bowl against Arizona. That really wasn't the case. You didn't really see much of Julio Farouk. You didn't really see much of anybody besides Brennan Thompson this year. So you got to be able to give him weapons that can work. You also have to be able to have that difference maker at running back. In fact, for my money, the most important asset to this team to be successful in an Arbuckle offense is a running back that can take pressure off whoever is your QB. Michael Hawkins, Jackson Arnold. If you land John Mateer, you land John Mateer. You got to be able to have somebody that is not afraid to take on the hits and drive forward for first downs. Because of when this offense was really, really good and in the running for maybe a dark horse college football playoff berth, they were running the football efficiently. They were averaging about 5.2 yards per play. They were picking up multiple first downs in each quarter with the ground game. That is how this offense is going to be successful. And the third thing is you got to have a stable offensive line. Bill Beatonbow, God bless him. I think he is one of the best when it comes to developing personnels up front. We have watched as multiple dudes in years past have gone off to make success in the NFL, have longevity of a career on Sundays. This was not the offensive line that you can bank on. You have got to go into the portal. You have got to go and put an emphasis on recruiting, landing guys that can build alongside Texas. Because the thing that Texas did this past year, and many people were saying, how were they able to have such success? Because of the scheduling, because of the SEC wanted to welcome them with an open arms, and we were cast the wayside. Sure, if you're a Norman and you want to feel that way, and you know how I feel about you, Sooner Nation, I call it as is. I love you. I think that you are a premier program and deserve to be at the pinnacle of college football. But at the same time, you got to realize that they built their offensive line for the SEC. You were building it for the personnel in the passing attack for the SEC, which I'm not saying is a problem. What I'm saying is you got to get the meat and potatoes guys up front on both sides of the football. If you have that, you'll be successful. For Arbuckle's offense to work, a quarterback has to be protected, at least for a 7-step drawback to where he can read his first two options and then decide to tuck and run. Last thing I want to say on this before we move on. I think this offense is going to be made up of three things. Number one, up-tempo. Everyone knows that this offense can strike. And in years past, if you look at guys like Bob Stoops, if you look at guys like Lincoln Riley, if you look at guys like Josh Heupel, the best thing for an offensive personnel to work is when it is moving up tempo. When you have the guys that are able to put up 40 a game. When you have the guys that are able to put up 42 in a third quarter, and then you get to your backups and they're able to run out the clock and do business. And it feels like that there is a harmonious action. Number two, multiple difference makers at wide receiver. And it also includes tight end. The tight end position in this offense, much like when there was Mark Andrews there, is going to be essential for this team. If you feel like that you have the right people in play at the tight end position, it's going to make life so much easier for your quarterback, and it's going to continue to help you pick up first downs. And the third thing is you have to have an accurate quarterback. And I'm not saying that that quarterback has to simply be Jackson Arnold, and I'm not saying it has to be John Mateer, but John Mateer might be the guy that you go after simply because he's probably the best fit. Look at his numbers this past year. 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 64.6 completion rating. You got to have somebody that is able to get the ball out quickly, accurately, and in the hands of his playmakers to make moves after the catch. If you have that, this is going to be an offense that I think can take new heights. I also think that this is a good move for a guy like Brent Venables. You went after somebody who understands small town culture, big time atmosphere. He gets what Norman's all about. We are a meat and potatoes type of town. We are somebody that believes that our offense can reach new heights. We are somebody that believes that we can easily be left to the wayside, but we're going to bring in the right people. The right people are going to benefit us. And more importantly, when you look at his numbers last year, what he was working with after losing Cam Ward, plus multiple players of the transfer portal, it's like, hey, this is the Crimson and Cream. This is Sooner country. When you put on that OU jersey, you represent more than just a logo on the head. You represent a culture, a brand, a style. And we're going to get the right people in here. The people that you're going to have working with, they would never consider Washington State. And that's not an insult to Washington State. It's the reality of the situation. They would never look at a place like Pullman and believe that that's somewhere they can have success. They would look currently at Norman and say, we want to win championships. We want to bring back the aura of Oklahoma football. We want to be the team that people talk about in the SEC. We want to be able to say that the Red River shootout is something of prominence, that we're going to be back and forth. So Arbuckle, I think, is the right guy because if he gets Texas, he gets recruiting, He gets the area. He gets the lay of the land. He knows what Oklahoma football is all about. And remember the last time that you got a guy from West Texas with a small town background to come on in and stabilize your offense. Multiple Heisman Trophy winners, multiple championships at the college football playoff, multiple conference titles. I'm not saying Ben Arbuckle can be like Lincoln Riley. What I am saying is sometimes taking a play out of the old book, the way that Bob Stoops, when he hired Brett Venables at age 29, might be the reason why Venables is hiring a 29-year-old OC to be the successor plan, and more importantly, the stabilization, the studious, harmonious equalizer when it comes to this offense. I like this move a lot. I really do think that at the end of the day, Ben Arbuckle will be a reason we are talking about Oklahoma football in a positive light in 2025. Maybe, just maybe, in the running for a college football playoff berth. But let me know in the comment section down below. What were your thoughts on the hire? Do you think that this is a good move for Sooner Country? Do you believe this is a bad move that ultimately will lead to the firing of Brent Venables? Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. And check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, SEC Nation, Boomer! Peace.